Robin Hood is an enduring legend that has entertained and inspired people all over the world for generations. Whilst the debate continues surrounding the identity of the real Robin Hood, parts of this much-loved story are true, and evidence can still be found today in Robin's home, Sherwood Forest. This film is about the real Sherwood Forest, before, during and after the time of Robin Hood. For hundreds of years, the ancient oaks of Sherwood have stood witness to an ever-changing world. They have seen England's fascinating history unfold, and whilst much of the environment has changed beyond recognition, the forest today provides a unique glimpse into the past, where mystical beauty can still be felt, and the spirit of Robin Hood continues to thrive. As the glaciers retreat and the northern hemisphere starts to emerge from the grip of the last ice age, primitive plants begin to grow in the dry and stony earth. Over the next 5,000 years, the area gives way to an abundance of flora and fauna. Native trees such as birch, elm, lime and oak flourish, and wild boar, deer and ox roam freely over the open stretches of heath and grassland. 4000 BC, and man begins making a living by farming the land. Over the following millennia, farming intensifies with settlements growing, and more land is cleared for the grazing of domestic livestock like cattle and pigs. The society that emerges reaches its height during the medieval period, with the feudal society of those who toil, those who fight, and those who pray. This is the time of Robin Hood. Medieval Sherwood was not, as many imagine, a continuous swathe of dense virgin woodland. With its wide open spaces, the forest was ideal for hunting, and so the area was designated a royal hunting forest, the largest in the country, spanning over 100,000 acres. Only the privileged few could legally hunt on the king's land, and penalties were harsh for anyone who broke the forest law. The Great North Road for centuries stood as the main route between London and the north. Cutting through the forest, only the foolhardy would stray far from the beaten pathways. This historic track has ghosts and myths all of its own, and offered rich pickings for outlaws like Robin Hood and later highwaymen such as Dick Turpin. Legend tells of a secret meeting place for Robin and his outlaws among the mighty oaks. From just a single tiny acorn, it is said that an oak tree will take 300 years to grow, 300 years to live, and another 300 years to die. The major oak is believed to be over 1,000 years old, and yet today it still flourishes in the heart of the forest with its great spreading canopy. The people of the Shire pass down stories over generations, the escapades of those living outside of the law, outlaws. They tell of a folklore hero who stole from the rich and defended the poor. A common man standing up for his people in the face of unjust authority. The legend of Robin Hood is born. Throughout the medieval period, great monasteries dominated Sherwood, with 8 prosperous religious estates. The land was cultivated for cattle farming and the growing of hardy crops, all tended by a workforce of local peasants. When Henry VIII made himself head of his own Church of England, he took the opportunity to seize the church's amassed wealth. In 1536, he dissolved the monasteries, and the monastic estates were sold to the king's closest allies and strongest supporters. Throughout most of the 17th century, the new landlords replaced former monastic buildings with magnificent country houses. By the 18th century, there were 5 main estates in Sherwood, known collectively as the Dukeries, as all but one were owned by powerful and wealthy dukes. Each residence was literally a palace in its own kingdom, run by an army of servants with grounds landscaped as far as the eye could see. Sadly, some of these once great buildings have been destroyed or lost to the ravages of time. However, some are still in evidence today and now serve as public attractions. Rufford Country Park attracts many visitors with the romantic ruins of its 12th century abbey and later country house. Its 150 acres of historic parkland includes woodland walks, gardens, and a majestic lake. Thoresby Hall now operates as a splendid country house hotel, set in the magnificent grounds of the Thoresby estate. Clumber Park is run by the National Trust, with over 3,800 acres of beautiful parkland, a serpentine lake covering 87 acres, and the longest double avenue of lime trees in Europe, extending over 3 miles. During the grand days of the Dukeries, great fortunes were made from the land of Sherwood Forest, from the sale of timber for the growing towns and shipbuilding industries, and from the agricultural revolution. As pioneers, the Dukes were constantly looking at ways of harnessing the potential of the land, and in the 19th century, their attention turned underground and to the black gold that was to fuel the Industrial Revolution. Coal had been mined on exposed outcrops for centuries, but in 1842, the first modern deep mining began in Nottinghamshire. In little more than 50 years, there were 30 collieries across the county, with the accompanying rail links to transport the coal, villages to house the workers, spoil heaps and thick smog. Mining was dangerous and dirty work. Men and boys toiled in the darkness by the light of a safety lamp, in constant fear of explosions or being buried alive. During the world wars of the 20th century, Sherwood played an important role, with the great houses requisitioned as barracks for soldiers and the extensive areas of woodland and private parks making ideal places to hide large numbers of tanks and ammunitions. With oil reserves in short supply and the country in crisis, an urgent solution was required to continue the war effort. This gave rise to the first UK oil field, operating in secrecy under the protective canopy of Sherwood's wooded areas. The post-war period saw huge changes to the coal industry. Economic factors led to a move toward importing coal, and ultimately to the decline of this once great industry. Over the centuries, man's use of Sherwood Forest had left a battered and bruised landscape, with much of the wildwood lost and the scars of industry visible. Help was needed to conserve and restore the last remnants of the ancient forest and sensitively develop the area for all to enjoy. In 1969, a 37-acre country park was designated around the oldest surviving part of the original Royal Forest. Due to its popularity, the world-famous Major Oak was fenced off in 1975 to prevent soil compaction by visitors' feet and protect the vulnerable roots. Now over 450 acres in size, the park is Nottinghamshire's only national nature reserve because of its special importance for wildlife, with it home to some of the rarest insects in Europe. Today, it also attracts Robin Hood fans from around the world, especially when it hosts its annual summer Robin Hood Festival. Nottinghamshire has much to offer the visitor, with the great estates of the Dukeries, the romantic Newstead Abbey, playground for the young poet Lord Byron, idyllic villages that were home to the founding Pilgrim Fathers, the prehistoric gorge of Cresswell Crags, and of course the city of Nottingham, home to the current sheriff and Nottingham Castle. Today, a range of partners and agencies work with local communities in recreating the traditional mosaic of forest habitats, in supporting its endangered wildlife, and reviving its lost customs and traditions. But much more needs to be done to reverse the centuries of damage and protect this special place for future generations. Many come to Sherwood Forest looking for different things. For some, it is a tranquil and beautiful place to relax and play. Others come in search of a forgotten age, to feel the romance and spirit of the forest, and to discover secrets from its past. Walking through the wild woods today, let your imagination run free, and you can sense all the characters from its colourful history. The soldiers and the miners, the Grand Dukes surveying their land from a mounted steed, the Cistercian monks with their hooded heads bowed in prayer, and, of course, the true lord and guardian of the forest, Robin Hood.